Hi, I'm Aaron, host of the Strength and Style podcast, and I'm here to tell you it is your fault. Hey guys, I'm Aaron, host of the Strength and Style podcast and founder of Atlas Menswear, clothing for muscular men. Visit us at atlasmenswear.com. This video is going to be another video in the series that I'm doing on things that I learned when I was in Taekwondo and martial arts when I was younger, and how I learned to apply those lessons to other areas of my life. The topic that I'm going to be covering today is kind of a touchy one. Whenever I bring this up or whenever it comes up when I'm talking to somebody, people tend to get offended, they tend to get defensive, and I end up getting a lot of hate. But I think that it's really important that I cover it, because if you listen to the advice that I give you from the lessons that I learned from martial arts, this could literally change the trajectory of your life. Today, we live in a society where a lot of people want to blame somebody else for their problems. Someone else or something else. Something external from their life is what they put the blame on. People don't want to take responsibility for anything that happens in their life. The main reason for this, I think, is ego. If they don't have to blame themselves for anything, their ego is intact and always perfect. And even though their life may be falling apart, they still feel good about themselves because nothing is ever their fault. I like to take the complete opposite approach. Now, it's a little scary to take the opposite approach because your ego is out there and you're gonna feel uncomfortable, and it can feel painful sometimes. But in the beginning, in the intro, I looked at you and said, this is your fault. A lot of you probably felt a little bit of defensiveness in your head. And if you felt that way, you really need to be introspective and look at why you automatically feel that way. When I tell you something is your fault, I don't do that to make you feel bad. I do that out of a place of compassion. Because if something is not your fault, you're not the cause of it, you don't have the power to fix it. It's always somebody else that has to fix it. It can be society, the way you grew up, the people that you're around. It's always somebody else's fault. Therefore, you can't fix anything in your life. When I tell you something is your fault, that means you have the power to fix it. You alone have the power to fix it. And you can do that. If you look back on mistakes you've made, or even if you don't think they were mistakes, anything negative in your life, if you look back on it and can find a way that it was your fault, that is a great thing, because then you can fix it. If you caused it, you can fix it. Just the other day, I was at the gym and I heard somebody talking about why he's so overweight. He was saying that the reason he's overweight is because his wife is so good at cooking and she bakes cakes and cookies all the time, and he can't help it. She's feeding him all this stuff, and it's her fault that he's overweight. You see, he was giving her all the power and the responsibility of him being overweight. He was protecting his own ego, because obviously it's not his fault. She just keeps cooking all this stuff that he likes to eat, and he doesn't have any choice then. He doesn't have any choice, and he doesn't have any blame. What he should be doing is taking responsibility for that situation, talking to his wife, saying, honey, please don't cook this stuff. I'm trying to lose weight. And if she won't listen, then she's not holding him down and force feeding him. He's talked to her. He can tell her that he loves her cooking, doesn't have to offend her, but ultimately it's his responsibility for what goes in his mouth. Back when I was a Taekwondo fighter, Taekwondo is an individual sport. I always gravitated towards the individual sports. I was a Taekwondo fighter. I wrestled when I was in high school, and later on when I was done with those, I started lifting weights. I consider all those individual sports. That doesn't mean that if you're on a team sport, the lessons don't apply. The lesson applies the same. If you're on a football field and you're a wide receiver, you still have an individual job to do. And if you don't do your job, your team is not going to perform well. So don't think that just because I was in individual sports, that this lesson only applies to individual sports. Now in Taekwondo, when I was at a tournament, national tournament, an international competition, when I step on the mat, it's just me and the other guy. I am responsible for every single thing that I do. I'm responsible for a kick that I didn't throw that I should have. I'm responsible for taking a headshot, leaving myself open and getting blasted in the face by a kick. There was no one out there but me to blame. And conversely, nobody else out there to take credit for if I knock somebody out and win a match. Now that doesn't mean that there's not other people involved. You have your coaches, your sparring partners, family support or lack of support, friends support, lack of support. It can go both ways. There are other people involved, but you are responsible for every interaction of those people. You pick the coach that you hire to train you. You pick your friends to be around, whether they're supportive or non-supportive. You can't really pick your family, but you can choose what you listen to. If they're not supportive to you, you can choose not to listen to that. All of that is up to you. If you have a family member or family members or friends that are constantly telling you that you're not good enough or that you shouldn't be doing that or trying to get you to go out and drink, that is your responsibility to either not listen to those people, or if they have too much influence over you, you get those people out of your life. It's all up to you. When I was a Taekwondo fighter, this lesson was taught to me by my instructors when I was at a young age. So it was just kind of a way of life for me. I knew that everything was my fault. I knew everything, my performance was up to me. Now, once I got older and I stopped competing in Taekwondo, I still had that mindset. That mindset was instilled in me by my coaches and my instructors from a young age. So it's always going to be just a natural part of my mindset. Now, from the lessons that I learned in Taekwondo, I was able to take control of my health, or keep control of my health, up until this day. I was always working out and exercising when I was in Taekwondo, and from that I knew that that was my responsibility. Anything that I did affected my body, whether it was my nutrition, my workouts, my sleep, and my mental health. Your body is a manifestation of the way that you live your life. So you need to take charge, accept responsibility for the way that you're living your life, accept responsibility for what you're putting in your mouth, accept responsibility for the number of calories that you're burning throughout the day, accept responsibility for how much load-bearing exercise you're doing and how much muscle you're building and how that affects your mental health. Now, of course, I'm not perfect. If I make a mistake, if I go out with some friends and have too much to drink and then I'm not able to have a good workout the next morning, or just have a horrible day the next day because I drank too much, that's my fault. I hear people say all the time that, oh, I went out with friends and they just kept buying me drinks, so what was I supposed to do? You don't put the drinks in your mouth. You let your friends know, hey, I'm done drinking. If you're going to buy me a drink, you're wasting your money, or you're going to have to drink it because I'm done. I have to work out in the morning. I have something to do the next day. I don't want to ruin my day. Now, those people aren't going to hold you down and dump a drink in your mouth. And if they do, that's your fault too for hanging around a bunch of jerks. It is always your fault. I use that mindset in my business too. I'm the founder of Atlas Menswear. I'm the president, CEO. I run everything. Everything that happens in Atlas Menswear is my fault. I'll give you an example of something that at the time I would have loved to blame somebody else. Leading up to the Arnold Sports Expo of 2022, I had a manufacturer that I was working with. We had clear delivery dates. We had clear quality expectations, and we had clear expectations on what the order was supposed to be. The manufacturer completely missed the deadline. I had ordered in time to get the inventory for the Arnold Expo because I had a booth there. Completely blew past that. I didn't have any of the inventory that I was expecting to have to sell at the Arnold. When I took delivery of the shirts, I went through every shirt, examined them, and the quality was not up to my standards. And there were several other things that this manufacturer just completely screwed up. So instead of sitting around whining about it, I fired the manufacturer. I'll never work with them again, obviously. And it took some time to look back to see how I could have prevented that, how that was my fault that I was in that situation. At the time, I felt like because I had this deadline, I didn't have any time to find another manufacturer, which was probably true, but that was my fault that I was in that situation to begin with. But I didn't sit around forever and just whine about it and say, this manufacturer screwed up. There's nothing I could have done. It's not my fault. There's no more thought required if you say that. I look back, I saw why it was my fault, and then I'm able to fix it. I can't go back in time, obviously, and make that mistake not happen, but I can fix it, take ownership of it, and make sure that doesn't happen again. Now, a specific lesson that I learned when I was in Taekwondo that I pulled from to help me get through that situation was when I was younger in Taekwondo, I knew I wanted to get into competition. I knew I had a passion for Taekwondo, but the school that I was at wasn't very big. It didn't have a lot of sparring partners for me, so I had a choice. I could have either stayed there and just said, it's not my fault. The school that I go to it's not big enough. It doesn't have what I need. What I did was I left that school, and I love the people there. I'm not saying anything about the Taekwondo school that I went to. I love the people. I love the instructor. I grew up in that Taekwondo school. It just didn't have what I needed. So I had to take responsibility for that. I took ownership for it, and I left that school and went to a different Taekwondo school that was a lot bigger, had a lot more competition for me for sparring partners, had great coaches. That completely changed the trajectory of my Taekwondo career. If I wouldn't have left that school, and it was a comfort zone too. That school was like my family, but I had to take ownership of it, leave to go to the bigger school, and of course, that school became my family too. I love both of them. The experience that I have in each one is unique, and both schools shaped my life and helped me become the man that I am today. But it was something that I had to do. It wasn't fun. It wasn't comfortable, but I knew what my goals were, and I knew I had to take ownership of the situation I was in and change it. So how does this apply to you? You may not have been in Taekwondo. Odds are you probably weren't. You may or may not have been in a sport when you were younger. I use an example. The example that I hear probably the most often is somebody that's out of shape and overweight. We all hear the excuses. It's the way I was brought up. The people that I associate with they're always going out to eat and always going out to drink, and there's nothing I can do about it. I have medical problems that cause me to be overweight. All of that stuff, I'm telling you right now, listen to me. All of that stuff is your fault. Even something, let's go to the extreme, something that seems the least likely to be your fault, a medical problem. If you have some kind of medical problem, say you're getting older and your hormones are getting out of whack. Take responsibility for that. Tell yourself that's your fault. Really it is. It's your body not doing something right. So what can you do about that? First of all, your lifestyle has something to do with your testosterone. If you're younger and you're overweight, or you're not pushing yourself, you're not doing any load-bearing exercises to grow some muscle, you're going to drop your testosterone way prematurely. That's your fault. Now, if you're doing all those things and you're getting older and your testosterone still is starting to drop, get to the doctor, find out a way to fix it, and get it fixed. I hear a lot of times that you have a thyroid problem. It's the same thing. Go to the doctor. There's medication. There's treatments for those things. You can get that fixed. Even more extreme, there are people that have been paralyzed from the waist down and end up becoming bodybuilders. There are bodybuilding competitions for people that are bound to wheelchairs, and these guys have better physiques than 99.9% of the people out there. When I'm telling you those things are your fault, I do it from a place of compassion. In my mind, if you come to me and you say you're out of shape, you're overweight, don't feel good, and I tell you it's not your fault, don't worry about it, I'm telling you you don't have any power to fix that. I am not going to do that to somebody. I'm going to tell you it is your fault because I want you to be able to fix it. I want to empower you to be able to take control of that situation. If it is your fault, you can fix it. And don't worry about your ego getting hurt. Sometimes your ego needs to be hurt. You always hear people saying that you always look on the bright side of a situation. You do need to look on the bright side, but you can't ignore the dark side. You can't just pretend that the mistakes and whatever bad stuff that happened didn't happen. It did happen. Look at it and see why it was your fault. People do mental gymnastics all the time to try to shift the blame from themselves to somewhere else. You need to actually do the opposite of that. Do the same mental gymnastics, or put the same amount of thought to figuring out why something is your fault. And then when you realize why it's your fault, you'll see why you can fix it, why you have the power to fix that. I want you to look at the situation you're in your life, figure out why everything is your fault, and then get comfortable with that, and then you will be empowered to change it and change your life for the better. All right, guys, I hope this video was helpful for you. Leave me some comments and let me know if you agree with what I'm saying or if you disagree with what I'm saying. Let me know some situations where you've thought something was somebody else's fault, or an external situation that you didn't have any control over, and how you've changed your mindset and figured out why it is your fault and how that empowered you to be able to fix it. I would love to hear some stories and see some of the ways that you guys are changing your lives. Please like and subscribe. I'm going to be putting out a lot more content like this, and hopefully you'll find something that will benefit you. I would love for that to happen, and I would love to hear about it. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.